500 cannonballs per day into this fort. Now the best way to fire a cannonball is to fire it on a flat trajectory. You fire it up in the air, it'll go straight up and then it'll come straight down. Maybe you take out one person. But fire it flat, like skipping a stone on a lake, it'll do much more damage. You go through a group of men, then it'll hit the ground, skip and bounce. If you've ever seen The Patriot, the cannonballs in the battle scenes hit the ground and it's going through the line of men. That's fairly accurate. That's what they were designed to do. In fact, we call it bowling for humans. Now the best way to defend yourself against that is to build up these earth mounds. That way the cannonball will hit the side of the earth rather than do more damage. These traverses, as I said, are for the most part original. The description we have of them says they're 12 to 15 feet tall, about 20 feet wide at the base though. So they have eroded over the past couple hundred years. Originally about the same height as the top of the mountain. And they were very effective. It was on, I think, May 3rd. Captain Daniel Cushing wrote in his diary, Captain Wood, another officer here, wrote that he estimated there was like a little over 300 shot and shell that came in that day, and the Americans suffered a total of 4 killed and 7 wounded. So having over 300 shot and shell coming in at you, you only have suffer 11 killed and wounded. That's a pretty good ratio, I think. So to me, that means the traverses were doing their jobs fairly well. Everybody that lived here lived inside of a tent set up in all the fields that we're going to be walking through. This field is where the Ohio militia was camped. Militia, your citizen soldiers, as Andrew said, the American Army is very small, the standing army. So they relied very heavily on the militia system to bulwark up the forces. Here at Fort Meigs, most of the troops were militia. They came from Ohio, Virginia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania. The Ohioans were camped right here. The Kentuckians at the other half of this field and extending all the way down to the other end of the fort. There were a lot of Kentuckians around. The Ohioans had charge of the west wall. The wall we just came walking through. If you guys turn around and take a look at that wall, you'll notice that every 5th or 6th picket is cut down. That way the men with the muskets and rifles can fire through the wall. Stand behind the taller pickets in order to reload. Tops of the walls are all sharpened. It's to act as 1812 version of barbed wire. Anybody trying to get up and over that will hurt themselves pretty good. And yes, I know that from experience. They built 7 blockhouses along the fort walls as well. The large buildings that you've seen. Blockhouse number 1 in that corner. Blockhouse number 1 over here. Numbered in order all the way around. There would be an artillery piece on the first floor. Men with muskets and rifles stationed on the second floor. They're manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nobody slept inside there. Again, everybody from the lowliest private all the way up to General Harrison himself was in a tent. And actually, to call this place Fort Meigs technically is a misnomer. This is actually a fortified camp. It's a temporary post. The Army set up camp here and they built the wall around themselves. So to be a true fort, you have to have barracks. So when we read the diary accounts, the words, the phrases actually interchangeable. Some of them called it Camp Meigs, some of them called it Fort Meigs. And for the longest time, until somebody explained this to me, I was actually quite confused about it. So yeah, any questions at this point?
The ball that the British shot in, would they be able to turn around the Americans and fire it back?
Mm-hmm, they could. Once those cannonballs quit rolling across the ground, yeah, you could just pick it up, and if it fit into your own cannon, you could fire it back at them. So it's not unheard of to think that a cannonball might have crossed the river a dozen times or more. There's actually an order here that anybody who returned a cannonball to the quartermaster that could get fired back to the British would receive an extra ration of whiskey. So there's your motivator. And they say during the first siege they handed out over 1,000 extra rations of whiskey. And there's lots of crazy stories. These guys diving out of the gun ports in the blockhouses, diving after bombs that had yet to explode, and pulling the fuse out at the last minute to turn it back in. But whatever you got to do, I guess. Keep in mind, we're going to give you guys an abridged tour. We're going to do about half the fort right now, kind of give you a taste of what our guided tours are like. A typical guided tour will take anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And we adapt it to the class level that's there. So, but yeah, you guys will get a taste of it here. We got some other things planned for you.